It was raining the day I got thrown out of my own family's company, not just some misty drizzle, full-on storm, thunder, sideways wind, the whole cliché. I walked 3 blocks through it because I left my key card in my truck. By the time I made it to the boardroom on the 22nd floor of Ridley & Sons Logistics, I looked like I crawled out of a ditch. My father barely glanced at me when I walked in. He was already red in the face, pacing, waving a manila folder like it was evidence in a trial. "Unbelievable," he snapped, slamming the folder down on the polished table. "You want to tell me what the hell this is?" There were about 10 people in the room. Legal, finance, operations. People I'd worked with for years. Nobody made eye contact. Then there was my sister, Karen, sitting at the end of the table in that navy blazer she loved so much. She had her arms crossed and a little smile on her face, like she'd already seen the ending and couldn't wait for the rest of us to catch up. "That's the draft you asked me to send last week," I said, my voice low but steady. "Draft?" he scoffed. "This is a disaster. These asset numbers are outdated by 2 years." I blinked. "What? No, I use the internal financials from—" He cut me off with a raised hand. Just don't. The new asset evaluations went out in a memo 2 days ago. You didn't read it?" "What memo?" Karen chuckled. "Oh, come on, Jake. You're supposed to be a Ridley. Quick note, before we keep going, share which city or country you're watching from." That smug voice of hers crawled under my skin. She'd been waiting for this, the chance to pull the rug out from under me, my jaw locked. "Nobody CC'd me on that memo." Dad stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "So now it's everyone else's fault? Is that it?" "No, I'm saying I never saw it." "Well, maybe if you were more focused on the work and less on acting like a damn intern with a title, we wouldn't be standing here." I looked around the table. Nobody spoke. Then he said it, loud enough for the hallway to hear. "This is incompetence, plain and simple." It got real quiet after that. Karen tapped a pen against her folder like she was waiting for a coffee order. Dad grabbed his briefcase. "We'll talk later." But we didn't. He walked out and everyone followed. I was left standing there, dripping water onto the carpet. My fingers curled around the edge of the table as the last door clicked shut. I drove home without the radio on. Just the sound of the rain slapping the windshield and my wipers struggling to keep up. My phone buzzed once. A text from Diane. "Come by the house tonight. Your father wants to speak with you." I almost threw the damn thing out the window. I didn't change clothes, didn't even dry off. I walked into their house like a ghost, still soaked from earlier, shoes muddy from the driveway gravel. Diane answered the door wearing one of her silk robes and a glass of red wine like it was just another Tuesday. "Jake," she said, stepping aside like she was opening a hotel room. The office door was already open. I didn't knock. My father was behind the desk, sleeves rolled up, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, swirling a drink in one hand and flipping through papers with the other. That room always reeked of cigar smoke and old wood, the kind of place where decisions got made, about people like me. He didn't look up. "Sit." I didn't. He sighed. "You're fired." No warm-up, no fake regret, just those 2 words. "You've got 6 months severance in your account already," he said, still flipping pages. "After that, you're on your own." I opened my mouth, but Diane beat me to it. She leaned on the doorframe behind me, arms crossed, sipping her wine like this was a PTA meeting. "We made some calls," she said. "There's a position in Denver, a logistics firm, friend of the family, good pay, clean start." I turned around. "You want me gone that bad?" Her eyes didn't flinch. "This isn't about want. It's about optics." "Optics?" I laughed once, short and bitter. "Karen sets me up, and I'm the one that has to disappear because it looks better?" My dad finally looked at me then, cold, like I was a spreadsheet that didn't add up. "You made a mistake. Own it. Take the Denver offer. Reset your life." "No," I said. "No to Denver. No to whatever this is. You're throwing me out like I'm nothing. You want nothing? Fine." He snapped the folder shut and tossed it aside. "Refuse, and you get nothing. Not a dime." I stood there for a second, making sure I wasn't about to swing at him. Then I turned and walked straight out. Past Diane, past the stupid marble foyer. The front door slammed behind me like a gunshot. I was halfway to my truck when I heard someone call my name. "Jake!" It was Grandpa Henry, out of breath, coming down the steps from the guest wing. He was in a faded flannel shirt and boots like he'd just stepped off a tractor. "What the hell happened?" he asked. "They fired me," I said. "Offered me a pity job in Denver. I told them to shove it." He looked toward the house, then back at me. "Your father's a fool." "I don't care anymore," I muttered, yanking open the truck door. But he grabbed my arm, firm. "You listen to me," he said. "You walk away with your head high, not like a kicked dog." "I'm not walking away," I told him. "Not really." His eyes narrowed, then he gave a slow nod. "You come by the old shed tomorrow morning," he said. "No phones, just show up." Then he let go, turned around and walked back toward the house like he'd just finished saying goodbye to a soldier. I didn't go back home that night. I didn't even call anyone. I booked a room at a rundown motel off Route 12. Carpet smelled like mildew. AC rattled like it was about to fall out of the wall. But it was quiet. And mine. I peeled off the soaked dress shirt, dropped it on the floor, and stared at the ceiling, shirtless on the bed, fists clenched on either side. My family had made their choice. Now, I'd make mine. I didn't sleep. Just laid there in that motel bed, arms behind my head, staring at the stained ceiling tiles like they had answers. At some point, I sat up, grabbed my laptop from my duffel bag, and pulled up the contract. The contract. The one they said I butchered. The file from the company server was still in my downloads. I opened it, and right away, something felt wrong. The font was off. The margins weren't mine. My formatting always had the header tucked right under the Ridley logo. This one had extra spacing. My language, the way I structured clauses, wasn't there. I opened my personal backup drive and pulled up the version I'd written the week before. Side by side, it was night and day. Same title, same freight line. But the numbers, the structure, the legal phrasing, not mine. I knew my work. I didn't care if they thought I was sloppy. I wasn't stupid. Someone had gone in and changed it before it got submitted, and not just edited. They'd replaced whole sections. I ran my hands through my hair, heart pounding. Only one person had the access and the angle to make that kind of swap. Karen. She'd been sitting in on the planning meetings. She had access to the shared drafts. She worked closely with ops and legal. Hell, she'd always watch me like a hawk anytime I was on a call or drafting language. And the motive? She'd wanted my job since the day I got it. She didn't just want to win, she wanted me erased. I stared at the glowing screen in the dark, every muscle in my body tensed up. The whole thing had been a setup, a clean one. That's when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. One new message, unknown number, 3 words. Watch, wait, learn. I stared at it for a second, then again. It had to be Grandpa. He'd always been cryptic like that. Old school, Vietnam, vet. Man of few words, but when he spoke, you listened. I didn't text back, didn't need to. I sat there another hour, just thinking. Karen had made her move, and yeah, maybe she'd caught me off guard, but I wasn't out of the game, not even close. I grabbed a pen from the nightstand and wrote 3 names on the motel notepad, names of vendors Karen used to talk trash about, companies Ridley had passed on, ones she said were beneath us. I figured it was time I paid them a visit. Whatever this was turning into, it wasn't going to be a comeback. It was going to be a reckoning, and I was ready to get my hands dirty. I made the first call the next morning. It was to a guy named Deacon Harlan, ran a scrappy freight outfit near Rockford. Karen once called him a Rust Belt relic in a strategy meeting. He picked up on the second ring. "Ironmark Logistics," I said. "Just starting out, but I'm not here to waste your time." He chuckled. "If you're not Ridley, I'm listening." That was all I needed. I got a lease on a second-floor office above a pawn shop in Milwaukee. 1 window, flickering overhead light. No heat unless I kicked the radiator. But it was mine. Ironmark was born with a $20K loan from a buddy I used to coach high school ball with, plus what little was left from severance. A week in, I got a burner phone in a padded envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting on the note inside. Grandpa Henry. "Do not email, do not text, use this. 1 call per week, no more." And so, we started the game. He mailed handwritten guides like we were running spy ops, port licensing forms with highlighted notes, shady loopholes buried in subsidy applications, tricks on how to get temporary clearance for rail freight across state lines, stuff I was never allowed to touch at Ridley. "I kept you out of it to protect you," he said one night over the burner, But that was my mistake. Now you learn everything. Meanwhile, Karen got promoted. COO of Ridley and Sons, press releases, freight CEO awards, cover of Business Weekly in a navy suit with that same smug smile she wore the day I got kicked out. They called her the future of logistics. I didn't care. Let her shine. I kept low, building slow. Ironmark didn't take on shiny clients. I went after nightmare contracts, companies with rusted ports, missed inspection deadlines, trucker unions on strike. We solved real problems no one wanted to touch. We didn't chase headlines. We fixed broken things. 2 years in, we started turning profit. By year 4, we had regional contracts in 5 states. Quiet, steady, dangerous growth. Grandpa sent a slip of paper once that just said, "Rail is the key. Feeder lines, NARS, leverage." So I started targeting failing feeder railways in the Midwest. Bought up controlling interest in 3 of them under holding companies. Karen never noticed. I kept my name off everything. Years rolled by quietly. Ironmark kept growing under the radar. Meanwhile, Ridley got greedy. They leveraged the freight line I'd written into that botched contract, the one Karen sabotaged, as collateral for expansion into Asian import markets. She signed deals with foreign ports she didn't understand and shipping companies with garbage reputations. She looked brilliant for about 10 minutes, but Ridley's debt climbed fast. They overpromised on cargo volumes. Fuel costs skyrocketed. Karen started skipping board meetings. Internal layoffs started. Rumors hit the trade shows. But I stayed quiet. I kept learning. The bait shop sat just off a gravel road outside Joliet, half hidden behind a row of overgrown pine trees. No sign, no parking lot. Just a faded live worms banner flapping in the wind and a busted ice chest out front. That's where Grandpa and I met every April and October. Rain or shine, no phones, no laptops. Just notepads and manila envelopes passed across a dusty Formica table while some old guy snored behind the register. One spring, after we finished splitting a bag of pork rinds and talking about a busted freight permit in Iowa, Grandpa reached into his coat and slid over a folder. "Time you saw this," he said. Inside was a copy of the original Ridley contract, the real one, my version, with red pencil circles around a small, quiet section buried near the end, Clause 14B. I squinted at it. "This is mine?" He nodded. "You wrote it, but you didn't know what it meant at the time. I did. I told your father years ago to include it. Never thought he'd actually let you draft it in. It was a clause about first right of refusal, hidden beneath legal jargon and asset conditions. But there it was, plain as day once you read it slow. In the event of asset restructuring, all Western Rail Corridor partnerships must be offered to the original drafting party before third-party negotiation. Me. I leaned back in my chair. "They never caught this?" "They fired you too fast," he said. "Karen rushed the process, thought she buried you. She didn't even read the damn thing. That clause sat there for a decade like a loaded gun. And while it waited, Ironmark quietly bought up the feeder lines that made up the backbone of those Western corridors. 3 lines, all under different shells, all mine. And Ridley, they kept sinking. Karen started scrambling. Short-term loans, emergency partnerships, foreign capital injections that barely patched the holes. Finally, they announced a strategic restructuring to protect their Western assets. That's when Clause 14B triggered. I didn't go public. I didn't call a lawyer. I mailed them a notice. Standard certified envelope, nothing flashy. Just a cover letter and the original contract with Clause 14B highlighted in red. The board panicked. Karen tried to pretend she didn't know what it meant. She said, "I doctored it." The legal team shut that down quick. The metadata matched. The clause was real, enforceable, binding. Right about then, Grandpa had the stroke. Massive. I got the news from a voicemail his nurse left on the burner he'd stopped using. I went to the funeral 3 days later. Black suit, hat pulled low. Nobody recognized me. Not Karen, not my father, not Diane. They all sat in the front row like royalty, nodding while the pastor talked about legacy and vision. I stood in the back, said nothing, didn't cry, didn't speak, just listened. Then I turned and walked out before the last hymn started. It was done. He had given me the playbook. Now I was finally calling the shots. 1 week after the funeral, I walked into Whitaker and Hill in a black suit I didn't bother ironing. The receptionist didn't recognize me. She gave me a tight smile like I was lost. "Jake Ridley," I said. "I'm expected." She blinked, checked the list, then buzzed me through. The conference room was already full. Long mahogany table, high-backed chairs, wall of framed degrees and oil paintings. Exactly the kind of place where people pretend to grieve with straight backs and sharpened knives. My father sat near the middle, arms crossed, looking bored. Diane was next to him, flipping through her phone. Karen had posted up at the head of the table like she owned the oxygen in the room. 2 Ridley board members were whispering near the windows, faces tight. Nobody said a word when I walked in. Karen glanced up, gave me that fake-ass smirk. "Wow, you do own a tie." I pulled out the chair across from her. "You're in my seat." She rolled her eyes and didn't move. Before it could turn into something louder, Mr. Whitaker walked in. Old, thin, sharp as ever. Gray suit, red folder. His assistant trailed behind him with a recorder and 2 briefcases. "Thank you all for coming," he said, like we had a choice. "Let's begin." He opened the folder. The silence was immediate. No condolences, no warm preamble, just business. As executor of Henry Ridley's estate, I've been instructed to read his amended will, signed and witnessed 7 months ago. He looked up at the room. Some of what follows may be unexpected. Karen smirked again and leaned back in her chair like this was just another show. "Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat. "To my grandson, Jacob Ridley, I leave 33% ownership of Ridley & Sons Logistics with full voting rights." The room didn't gasp. It froze. Karen's smile vanished like someone cut the power. My father sat up straighter but said nothing. Diane's face went pale. I didn't blink. "Let me repeat," Whitaker said. "Controlling shares, 33%, not restricted, not conditional." Karen snapped, "This has to be a mistake." Whitaker turned a page. "There's more." He slid a manila envelope across the table toward me. "Inside, you'll find an original version of the Midwest Freight contract drafted 10 years ago by Mr. Ridley." Karen's eyes darted toward it. Her voice cracked. "That draft was disqualified." "It was altered," Whitaker cut in. "Our firm worked with a digital forensics team. They traced the version submitted to the board back to your personal login." Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. "You made unauthorized edits," he continued. "The server logs confirm it. Timestamps, metadata, revision history. You tampered with it the night before the board meeting." My father didn't say a word, not one, just stared at the table. Whitaker turned to me. "Your grandfather included a written statement confirming he knew the clause's significance. Clause 14B, which—" "I know what it is," I said. Whitaker nodded and handed me the folder. "You now hold the key to the western corridor." I stood. The air in the room shifted like pressure before a storm. Everyone was watching me, but no one said a thing. Karen looked like she'd swallowed glass. Diane was gripping her pearls like a seatbelt. I looked at Whitaker, then around the table. "This meeting isn't the end," I said. I picked up the folder, tucked it under my arm. "It's the beginning." And I walked out. 2 months later, I stood at the front of the Ridley boardroom. Same table, same chairs, same view over the river. Only this time, my nameplate was right there in front of me. Jacob T. Ridley, managing partner. Ironmark had just finalized the merger with 3 regional rail firms. Nothing flashy. Quiet companies with dirty boots and sharp balance sheets. Together, they controlled every western feeder corridor Ridley needed to stay alive. I didn't gloat, didn't posture. I just ran the meeting. Karen was already gone. "Personal pressure," the announcement said. No one asked questions. My father had stepped down the week before. The board requested an internal audit. Not my idea, but I didn't stop it either. The numbers didn't lie, and neither did the emails. He didn't even fight it, just packed up his office and left a golf trophy on the shelf. The press called it a hostile takeover. It wasn't. It was business. I restructured Ridley from the inside out. Fired the consultants who hadn't done real work in a decade. Promoted 2 sharp operations managers from Indianapolis, kids with ideas and grit. Cleared out the dead weight, cleaned up the finances. We dropped the yacht sponsorships and started investing in intermodal upgrades. Freight volume went up. Turnaround time dropped. It wasn't about revenge. It was about correction. A reporter stopped me outside the building one morning, stuck a mic in my face. "How'd you pull it off?" she asked. "A decade out, and now you're sitting at the top?" I looked straight at the camera. Sometimes getting fired is just the first step. That clip made the rounds online for a week. I didn't care. I wasn't chasing headlines. A week before Christmas, a card showed up at the office. No return address, just Diane's tight cursive on the envelope. I opened it, one of those fake joy Hallmark types with snowmen and glitter. No message inside, just "Warmest wishes, Diane." I ran it through the shredder without blinking. In my new office, the one they built out of the old executive lounge, I had only one thing framed on the wall. Clause 14B. Black ink, white background, right above the desk. Last week, the bank opened a safe deposit box Grandpa had left in my name. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, his handwriting bold and steady. "Son, you were never the pawn. You were the player." I still think about that rainy day sometimes. The one where they cornered me in the boardroom and tossed me out like I was some intern. But I don't feel anger anymore, just clarity. They handed me the boot, and I used it to kick in the door.